he figured out that we have these infinite desires. And if you can attach finite things to that, you'll create an addict. And why do you think Amazon is worth trillions of dollars? All they figured out how to do is get you stuff that will never satisfy you as fast as they possibly can. So 2,617 times a day on the low end. If you're in the top 10%, 5,400 times. That's how many times you touch your cell phone in a given day. Now that can be anywhere from texting to emailing to swiping to whatever. Take 7 hours out of your day for sleep. That leaves you 17 hours of waking time. That puts you at about, I think it's like 130 times every hour, or if you're a millennial, probably at 300 times every hour. On top of that, the reason I'm even bringing this up is because I read this study, and this isn't so much for all of you, this is for me. This bothered me so much because when I read it, I'm like, there's no way that I do that. There's literally no way that I do that. So I checked, if you want to do this, you can look at it, you can get on screen time. I don't know how to do it on Android or Samsung or whatever. I'm an iPhone guy. Apple all the way. So, but you get on screen time under your settings. You go to see all activity. Under that, you can see how many times you actually use your cell phone. And on top of that study, there was another study that Apple just put out, I think like 3 years ago. They did 150,000 people that they studied. And out of that, they came up that the average time that you unlock your cell phone is 90 times per day. 90 times per day. I said to myself, so I'm like, surely I'm not 90 times per day. So I looked at it, and I think I was at 110. So I was actually over what I wanted to be at. So I'll be the first one to admit I'm addicted, and I think everybody's addicted. I think everybody knows it, and almost nobody's doing anything about it. On top of that, I was reading a study from B.F. Skinner. He's a behavioral psychologist from the 1950s. And in that study, he took pigeons. Now, obviously, Jesus says we're greater than sparrows. We're also greater than pigeons, right? So we're much higher intellectually than pigeons. But if it affects pigeons like this, it's going to affect you just as much, if not more, because we're more highly intelligent. We're more susceptible to habitual behavior and addictions than pigeons are. These pigeons are in this box, right? So he puts them in these box. In this box, there's a little button on the side, and every time they peck the button, it kicks out a little food pellet. That food pellet they would eat. They eventually learn the behavior of pecking the button. Food pellet comes out. Great. What do the pigeons do? They peck the button, get the food pellet, they eat until they're full, done. All right? He tweaks it a little bit in the next, puts a little variable into the next experiment. And in that, he does what's called intermittent reward response. And what that means is each time the pigeon pecks the button, it would maybe or maybe not kick out a food pellet. What happened was absolutely enlightening. The pigeons went insane, literally went insane. One pigeon pecked that button twice a second for 16 hours. Now, if that doesn't sound possibly like you or somebody you know, instead of pecking a button, you're pecking your phone screen, just hitting it, swiping. Thing is that we're doing the exact same thing, and what you're looking for is a reward. You either want to be liked, you want the thumbs up, you want the heart, you want any one of 10,000 emojis, which drive me nuts. Just a little side note, emojis drive me nuts because I don't know what they mean. Like I get people, they send me the exploding head, and I always thought that mean like you were really pissed off. It means like my head, like my mind's blowing, right? Or the clapping one or the hands raised. I don't know what any of these mean. I send a thumbs up, man. That's the only one. Thumbs up, thumbs down, or maybe, this or the fist bump. That's all I got. But anyway, what people are looking for, you send out a joke, you send out a post, you send out a video. What they want is a response that you like it, or that you somehow acknowledge that they're cool or whatever it is. And when they don't get that, that's that intermittent reward response. And what it's doing is it's driving people mad. And it's putting people totally at the mercy of their social media group. It's no wonder that people are suffering from anxiety, depression. Like, you're made for eternal things. And people right now are investing in finite things. We have an infinite hole in our heart, man, and it can never be filled except for God. As Augustine said, probably the most common quoted quote of all time in the Catholic Church, our hearts are made for you. Our hearts are restless until they rest in you, O Lord. I'm just going to bring in somebody that nobody really likes. Tom Brady is his name. He is the best quarterback of all time. Unfortunately, I have to admit that as a Vikings fan. But we have a chance this year. There's a chance. I don't know. It could happen, whatever. But anyway, they did this video with Tom Brady. It's on 60 Minutes. You can look it up if you want. And on this video, this is when he's still with the New England Patriots. He's won, I think 3 titles. He's got an $80 million contract. He was then married to a Victoria's Secret model, Giselle. And he's got houses. He's got money, all this stuff. So they interview Tom Brady. And Tom Brady, who is like the American dream, he's sitting there and he's talking to the interviewer. And the interviewer is like, Tom, what's it like? And he's like, I didn't think it came with so much baggage. And he's like, well, what do you mean? He's like, well, I can't go out. He's like, I can't live a normal life. People are always, there. They're always, I always got to be on. I'm always on. I just can't be a normal person. And he's like, yeah, but Tom, you're like the king of the sports world. You have everything you've ever wanted. And he looks at the camera. It is the most telling thing I think I've ever seen an athlete say in regards to this infinite desire versus finite things. And he looks right at the camera, and he says, a lot of people would say that, Tom, you got it made. You got everything. You're on top of the world. Me? I'm like, why do I have 3 Super Bowl rings and think that there's something more out there? And the interviewer looks at him and says, well, what is it, Tom? And he looks and he says, God, I wish I knew. I wish I knew. And I'm like sitting there, I'm like, Tom, you just said it. He just said, he's a God. I wish I knew. And here's the crazy part. Tom Brady is a Catholic. Now, I don't know how practicing he is or whatever. I would love, if you ever see this, give me 20 minutes. Just 20 minutes, I would love to talk to you because the man has the heart of a saint. It's just focused on the wrong thing. If you took 50% of what Tom Brady has for football and put it towards the Catholic faith, that man could be a St. Francis of Assisi because he has every desire. It's just attached to the wrong thing. And maybe any of you watching, you can experience this. Before we were setting up and talking, getting ready to shoot this video, we were talking about this thing I call the one more thing syndrome. One more thing syndrome is this. It came to me when I read an article. Jeff Bezos publishes a letter to his shareholders every year. And in this letter to his shareholders, he writes about the company and all this stuff. Well, a good buddy of mine sent me, I think it was 3 years ago, he sent me the shareholders letter and he said, you got to read this, Father. It's fascinating. Fascinating letter, but there's one part that I will never forget as long as I live. Jeff Bezos writes, and it's something akin to this. Amazon thrives. Never forget, Amazon thrives off the dissatisfaction of its customers. And I sat back and I'm like, I'm being used. I'll be the first to admit, so for the record, I'm a total loser, right? I'm with you. I'm trying to love Jesus as much as you guys are. I'm a sinner. We all struggle. I got Amazon Prime, right? Who doesn't want packages in 2 days? But here's the problem. What Jeff Bezos figured out is that, and he might not even know this. I don't even know if he's Christian. Somebody should look that up. One of you guys should look that up. See if he's Christian. Anyway, he said, he figured out that we have these infinite desires. And if you can attach finite things to that, you'll create an addict. And why do you think Amazon is worth trillions of dollars? All they figured out how to do is get you stuff that will never satisfy you as fast as they possibly can. And every time you get it, you're like, yeah, I got this. And then you're like, but what about that? What about that? I experienced this, and this is where the one more thing syndrome came from, right? I experienced this in hunting. I'm a big hunter. I love to hunt. I'm not very good, but I've done a lot of hunting, and I figured it out when I first started deer hunting because I'm like, all right, a good buddy of mine, Jerry is his name. He took me out hunting, and he's like, all right, let's go deer hunting. I'm like, great, let's go. He's like, well, you need to get your hunter's safety. I'm like, oh, yeah, I suppose I need that. So I get my hunter's safety. And by the way, I was like 32 when I took my hunter's safety. So I'm with like 13 and 14-year-old kids, and I'm, like, look, or I'm like, hey, what'd you put for 13, man? But like, it was a very humiliating experience. But I got my hunter's safety. Then I was like, all right, let's go. He's like, well, you need a gun. I'm like, okay. So guns are really expensive, if anybody doesn't know that. Once I got the gun, I was ready to go. No, you need a scope. Scope almost costs as much as a gun. Once you got the scope, then you need bullets. Then you need a knife. Then you need camo. Then you need your orange. Then you need, it just goes on and on and on. And you keep finding yourself saying, if I just get this one last thing, I'll be happy. I'll be done. You guys, I can testify to the fact you will never be done. You will never be done. And the fact is that the more you do that, the more that hole in your heart that is created for an infinite God is going to get deeper and deeper and deeper, and you're going to get more and more and more empty. I can tell you this from my own life. I haven't always been a priest. It might be hard to believe, but I haven't always been a priest. I made a lot of terrible decisions, a lot of stupid decisions. And I finally came to the understanding finite things are not enough. And if we don't have the infinite desire, if we should all have great desires to start companies and to do it for Jesus, but your ultimate desire has to be for God. And when it's there, when that's at the height, when that's the pinnacle, that's in your hierarchy, and that's where it's stationed, and it's the non-negotiable, everything else makes sense. That's why St. Augustine said, love God and then do whatever you want. Because there's no more law. If you love God, you're never going to hurt him. And now you've experienced freedom, true freedom, where you don't wake up the next morning and just feel like garbage or be like, what did I do last night? What did I say last night? What do I have to regret this morning? And then have that emptiness and say, now I got to go fill it again tonight. You don't need that. And to bring this full circle, I really believe all this is coming. I shouldn't say coming. It's being emphasized and growing exponentially because of social media. If you want something to do, I'm telling you, get off social media. Or cut down. Do little things. You don't have, maybe cutting out social media completely is too much. You can't do it. But start small, because the more you can get that out, the more you can start being in relationship with people in a real way and have real conversations. For parents that are watching, your kids shouldn't have a cell phone until they're 18. And if they do, when they get home, it should be locked down. When they get home, you take it. You're a family until the next morning. You hand it to them when they go to school. And that thing should only make phone calls, which is what phones were originally intended to do. Now, there's small computers that can launch rocket ships, man. We can do anything with these things. And with great responsibility, or with great power, comes great responsibility. And so you have to be responsible for yourself, for those you love, and for everybody around you. The more you do that, the more you experience the freedom that God created us for, and the more you'll realize that you don't need all this stuff. So, did we ever find out if Bezos is Christian?
Yeah, he hasn't publicly announced it. There's this article right here that says he believes in work-life harmony instead of the standard work-life balance.
Yeah,
he's
not Christian.
For sure. And home life are interconnected in forming and calibrating.
But this is, okay, so I'm going to, just a little side note on that. So this is where I think the world is really screwed up, because they think that they can have that, right? That, you ever see these, there's these big billboards that say, be nice? I freaking hate those billboards. And you know what? Nice comes from the Latin, I think it's nice, which means nothing, right? Niceness is nothingness. Kindness is a virtue, patience is a virtue. But why should, he's talking, I believe in this interconnectedness. And there's another one, Bezos, you ever see this? 20 minutes. Give me 20 minutes, please. I would love to sit down with you. Just pick your brain about Amazon, but also just to give you a little teaching on Jesus. But you can't have, why should I be kind? Why should I care about you? Just because you're another human being. But why? Because if there is no God, then the whole point is that it's just about power, pleasure, and I should get as much as I can as fast as I can. And if it hurts you, well, it hurts you. I'm sorry, but I'm here. I got one life to live, and it's going to be about me. So ultimately, all of that wording that they're using, interconnectedness, relationship, family dynamic, it's going to end up selfish. There's just, it's not that I don't have any faith in humanity. I got a ton of faith in humanity. But if you're pushing Jesus out of the picture, man, the whole point of laying down your life for somebody in love, that's ours. Like I have said for years, the Catholic Church should put a copyright on laying down your life for somebody, even if you don't know them, because that's Jesus. He came up. So when you watch a movie and you see that and somebody gives their life, my biggest one is Titanic. I don't know if you guys remember Titanic, but Titanic was like this huge thing. I'm like, why is this such a big movie? They're like women just infatuated with big boats, or is it like what is it? And it's Jack. It's Jack. And Jack's an idiot. He's a total moron. But you know what he does? He treats Rose with respect, and he tries to love her when the other jerk is like beating her and forcing her to do stuff. No, Jack's this big heroine, and girls love that. But then what they really love is the end. Because what does Jack do at the end? He loves Rose so much that he gives his life for her. That's Christianity. That's not a good movie called The Titanic. That's Jesus. And Jesus has the copyright on that. Because if you don't have Christ, that doesn't make any sense. Laying down your life for somebody makes no sense. Because why should I care about you? If I got one life to live and then I disappear, I'm not going to give it for you. Why would I? That makes no sense. Now, we can have a whole talk about that and evolution and how, there's all types of things we can talk about there. But save it to say, Jesus has the copyright on laying down his life for those that he loves, even those that hate him. And we're called to do the same. And the more we do that, the more that infinite hole in our heart will be filled.